Okay, wow, you are really into this whole why are people late thing.
Looks like you've been doing a lot of research.
Just sent us a bunch of articles and notes.
Yeah, you even found some stuff from like a podcast for people learning English as a second language.
So it seems like you really need us to, like, really deep dive into the language and culture of punctuality.
Or maybe the lack of punctuality.
Interesting.
It's fascinating, right?
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. It's not just about, like, learning new words, though.
Right.
It's about, like, getting this deeper understanding of how people view time.
And how expectations around time can be totally different depending on like where you are in the world.
Exactly. Like, I noticed in this podcast episode you sent over, it starts with this scene where a boss is super annoyed.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
People are coming in late to a meeting.
And of course, they've got their excuses ready.
All the classic excuses, right?
Tied up with a client.
Stuck in traffic.
My last meeting ran over.
Like, we've all heard those a million times.
Definitely. But it's funny, isn't it?
What's funny?
Some excuses just sound way more acceptable than others.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, if you say you were tied up with a client,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you were doing something important for work.
Right, like unavoidable.
But if you say you were grabbing a coffee,
Hmm.
it kind of makes your boss wonder if you've got your priorities straight.
Yeah, that's true. It's like there's this whole hierarchy of excuses. Really.
Totally. And you know what I noticed?
What?
The podcast actually like goes into detail about the words people use in these situations.
Oh, yeah. They break it down.
Like explaining what a pilot means.
Right.
And they were saying running late is kind of a casual way to say you're going to be delayed.
Yeah, yeah. It's subtle, but it does make a difference how you say it.
It totally does.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it.
Okay.
If you say running late, it implies you're like aware of the time
You know you're behind.
and that you're trying to catch up.
But if you say stuck in traffic,
Mm.
it almost sounds like you're blaming something outside of your control.
Exactly. And there was that other part, remember?
Oh, where they talked about in a sec versus in a minute.
Yeah. Those don't actually mean the same thing at all.
Apparently not.
It's like this hidden code.
Like secret rules about how late is okay to be.
Right. If someone says, I'll be there in a sec, you might wait like a minute or two. No big deal.
Makes sense.
But if they say, be there in a minute, and then 5 minutes go by,
You start getting a little impatient.
totally. You're like, wait a minute.
Is there a better explanation for this?
Exactly.
Hmm.
And then, of course, it gets even more complicated
Oh, tell me about it.
when you start thinking about different cultures.
Oh, yeah. The podcast mentioned this whole thing about Latino time.
How, in a lot of Latin American cultures, dinner at 6 p.m. doesn't really mean 6 p.m. sharp.
Like, it's just a suggestion, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's such a perfect example
Why?
because it shows how being on time or not isn't just about an individual's personality.
Like, some people are just always late and some people are always early.
It goes deeper than that.
So, like, what else is there?
It's really tied to these cultural norms and expectations.
Interesting.
And those norms can be influenced by all sorts of things.
I can't even imagine what kind of things.
Like, think about a culture's history
Okay.
or how their society is structured,
Hmm.
or even, believe it or not, the climate.
Wow. I would never have thought of those things.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It means what's considered like rude in one culture
Uh-huh.
might be totally normal somewhere else.
This is blowing my mind. So being late isn't always so black and white. Being-
Exactly. It's more nuanced than that.
I'm already seeing punctuality in a whole new light.
It's not just about glancing at your watch, right?
Right.
It's about understanding the whole context.
Like all the cultural stuff we've been talking about.
Exactly.
This is going to be a fun deep dive.
So, thinking about how we can actually use all this stuff we're learning.
Yeah. Like, how do we apply it in real life?
Well, the podcast doesn't just talk about being late, right?
True.
It also talks about punctuality
Mm-hmm.
as a concept.
Okay.
And I noticed it used that word punctuality.
Punctuality. Huh.
Yeah, doesn't it sound kind of,
I don't know. Kind of formal.
yeah, a little bit.
Like something your grandparents would say.
Exactly. It's like old school, right?
It is.
And that formality itself might tell us something
About what?
about how important being on time is in different cultures.
You think so?
Yeah, the podcast contrasted those North American expectations.
Where everyone's got to be right on time.
Super important, right?
Right.
With that more relaxed attitude you see in some Latin American
Oh,
cultures.
right. They even gave that example about the workplace.
Yeah, where in some cultures it's totally fine to like
Get to work at 9.
get there at
Do
9,
coffee.
have a chat with your coworkers.
And not actually start working till 9:30.
Whereas like in North America, forget it.
You better be at your desk, ready to go,
by 9 a.m. sharp.
or else people will think you're slacking off.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's crazy how these unspoken norms
Yeah.
can have such a big impact
On everything.
from how individuals act
Mhm.
to the whole work culture.
You know, it makes me wonder, do these cultural differences ever cause problems?
Oh, absolutely.
Like conflicts or misunderstandings?
Especially when you've got people from different cultures working together.
Yeah, especially in international business, right?
Totally.
It seems like it could be a disaster waiting to happen.
It definitely could. Imagine you've got this team
Okay.
with people from different backgrounds
Yeah.
trying to work on a project together,
Yeah.
like strict deadlines.
Yeah.
And you've got someone who's super relaxed about time
Uh-huh.
clashing with someone who's like a total stickler for punctuality.
Oh, yeah. That's not going to be pretty.
Not at all.
But you know, the podcast also pointed out something interesting.
Oh, what's that?
Even within the same culture,
Yeah,
people can have different ideas about time.
that's true.
Like showing up a few minutes late for dinner with friends.
Yeah, no big deal.
No one's going to care.
Right.
But show up late for a job interview.
Ooh, that's not good.
Big mistake. It's all about context, right?
Context is key. It's not just about the event itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's also about, like, the power dynamics.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Like, think about it.
Okay.
A boss can probably get away with being a few minutes late to a meeting,
I guess so.
but an employee tries that, they're probably going to get in trouble.
Yeah, that's true. So it's like punctuality becomes a way of showing
Respect.
respect or even
Authority.
authority, yeah. And these unspoken rules, it's not like you learn them from a book, right?
Yeah, it's all about experience.
It's like you pick up on it.
From the people around you, you know?
Yeah, your family, friends, coworkers.
Exactly.
Get a secret language
It's a silent language of time.
that we all learn to speak. I like that. And it's important to be aware of those differences, right?
Especially nowadays.
When the world's getting more and more globalized.
Right, you got people from all over interacting all the time.
So, okay, it's not just about looking at the clock.
Nope.
It's about understanding
The social and cultural context.
the whole picture. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like reading between the lines.
Picking up on those unspoken rules.
Right. And realizing that on time
Mm-hmm.
can mean a whole lot of different things.
Depending on where you are, who you're with, all that.
Exactly.
You know, thinking about all this makes
Yeah.
me realize there's been times I've felt like stressed out
Oh, yeah.
or even judged
That
because it wasn't
became-
exactly on time. But now I'm thinking
Hmm.
maybe it wasn't just about me being late.
Maybe it was something else.
Yeah, like different ideas about time clashing.
I think that's a really insightful realization.
It is, right.
It helps you see things from a different perspective.
A more understanding perspective, yeah.
It's not about being right or wrong about time.
Right.
It's about understanding
Uh-huh.
that there are different ways of approaching it.
And those differences.
They can be challenging, for sure.
But also,
They can be opportunities.
that's true. I'm definitely feeling more equipped to handle those tricky situations.
Me too. It's so interesting, isn't it?
What is?
How this topic, punctuality,
Yeah,
it seems so simple on the surface,
it does.
but it can lead to such complex, fascinating discussions.
It really can. And it makes me think,
Yeah. What are you thinking?
like, how do we actually navigate all these differences
Good question.
without offending anyone or, you know?
Misunderstanding their intentions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't want to accidentally offend someone
Right.
from a different culture
Of course not.
just because we have different ideas about time.
That would be awful.
It would.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is, especially in our globalized world.
It's a minefield out there.
It really is. So many ways to mess up.
But I think the key is,
What's the key?
well, the podcast mentioned this,
Uh-huh.
awareness
Okay.
and flexibility.
Be flexible. Yeah.
They encourage people to talk about their own cultural perspectives on time.
Right, to share their experiences.
And I think that kind of open dialogue can really help.
to bridge that gap.
Yeah, between different ways of thinking about time.
So instead of just assuming everyone operates on the same schedule,
Exactly.
we should be curious.
Ask questions.
Like, hey, what's considered on time here?
What are the norms?
What are you used to?
Right. And be ready to adjust your own expectations.
So if you're working with a team
Uh-huh.
from a culture where things move a little slower,
Yeah.
maybe don't expect instant replies to your emails.
Or people to be okay with last-minute changes to the plan.
Right, right. It sounds like patience is really important.
Patience, empathy,
Mhm.
communicating clearly about deadlines, and expectations.
Right from the start, yeah.
Exactly.
And you know what else?
What's that?
It's not just about national cultures, right?
Yeah, that's so true.
Even within the same country, the same community,
People can have different ideas about time.
think about, like, different generations.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Older generations might be way more strict about punctuality.
While younger people are more relaxed about it.
It's like everything's relative, right?
It is. It's all about understanding the context.
And being willing to adapt,
Flexibility is key.
especially when you're dealing with people from different backgrounds.
It's not about erasing those differences.
Uh-huh.
It's about appreciating them.
And figuring out how to work together.
Exactly. Well said.
This deep dive is giving me a lot to think about.
Me too.
It's amazing how something like being late
Huh?
can tell us so much about people.
About their values, their culture.
Yeah, even their own personal assumptions.
It really is fascinating.
It is. And you know what I'm taking away from all this?
What's that?
Communicating well.
Yeah.
It's not just about the words we say.
It's more than that,
It's about understanding the cultural context,
especially when it comes to something like time.
where things can be so subjective.
Exactly. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's so easy to, like, accidentally step on someone's toes, culturally speaking.
Definitely. It's like you don't want to offend someone just because you have different ideas about time, you know?
Exactly. So, like, what do we do about that?
Well, I think being careful about the language we use is a good start.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Like podcast had that example about the phrase time is money.
Oh, right, right.
It's a common saying, but
But,
it reflects a really specific cultural perspective, right?
yeah, I guess it does.
Like one that emphasizes efficiency and productivity,
Mm-hmm.
which might not be so important in other cultures.
Yeah, you're right. Like, if you said that to someone from a culture that really values relationships,
Or like connection over getting things done quickly.
right, it could seem really insensitive.
Totally. It's a good reminder that even those little phrases we use all the time
Yeah, the stuff we don't even think about.
can have this like hidden cultural
They
meaning.
might not even realize it.
Exactly.
So, besides being mindful of our language, like, are there other things we can do
Oh, for sure.
to avoid these cultural misunderstandings about time?
One thing that I personally find really helpful is
What?
just being upfront about my own expectations
Okay.
and asking other people about theirs.
So, like, how would that work in practice?
Okay, let's say I'm working with a team
Mm-hmm.
from a culture where it's normal for meetings to start a bit late.
Like 10, 15 minutes behind schedule?
Yeah, something like that. I
Yeah.
might just say, hey, just so you know, I'm used to starting meetings right on time.
Okay.
So if there's anything I need to be aware of in terms of your cultural norms,
Yeah.
just let me know.
I like that. It's direct, but also respectful.
Right. It opens up the conversation.
Gives everyone a chance to, like, adjust their expectations.
Exactly. And it shows you're willing to be flexible, you know?
You're not trying to impose your own cultural norms on everyone else.
Exactly. And I think active listening is super important too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not just about like stating your own preferences.
Uh-huh.
It's about really trying to understand the other person's perspective.
Yeah, putting yourself in their shoes.
And sometimes that means paying attention to those like nonverbal cues.
The stuff people aren't saying out loud.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like if you notice someone's getting tense when you talk about deadlines,
Uh-huh.
it might be a sign that they have a different approach to time than you do.
Yeah, that's a good point. It reminds me of, like, when you're traveling in a new country
Oh, yeah.
and you completely misjudge how long it'll take to get somewhere.
Oh, I've done that so many times. Like thinking, oh, it's just a 10-minute taxi ride.
Famous last word
And then it ends up taking like an hour.
because of traffic or who knows what.
Right. You forget that all these things can affect time, traffic
Yeah.
patterns,
Cultural norms.
the weather.
Even, like, road construction.
It's all part of it. And those kinds of travel experiences,
Mhm.
they can be such good learning moments.
They teach you to not take things for granted.
Exactly. And to be open to different ways of doing things.
So it's not about being right or wrong about time, really.
No.
It's about understanding that different cultures have different approaches.
And those differences can actually be really cool.
Yeah, it's not always a bad thing.
If we approach it with an open mind, it can be super enriching.
I totally agree.
So yeah, I think that's like the main takeaway from this deep dive.
Punctuality is about more than just minutes and seconds.
It's about understanding and respecting other people's perspectives on time.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? I mean, we talked a lot about being late, but what about being early? Is that ever a problem?
That's a great question to think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us. Hope you learned some cool stuff about time, lateness, and all those cultural nuances.
And until next time, welcome back, everybody, to The Deep Dive. Today we're diving into,
Ooh, food.
yeah, food and restaurants
Yeah,
and how we talk about them.
I'm hungry already.
Me too.
Okay.
And what better way to do that
Tell me.
than by looking at how an English language learning podcast
Oh, cool.
does it. So we're going to be looking at the phrases and examples that they use to teach English
Awesome.
and kind of glean some insights, not just about,
Yeah.
how to expand your vocabulary, but how
Mm.
language reflects kind of cultural attitudes towards food.
Yeah, that's fascinating because food is so deeply tied to culture,
Absolutely.
isn't it? Words and phrases that we use
Yeah,
reveal a lot about
exactly.
our values and social norms around dining.
And I think our sources offer a really unique perspective because
Yeah.
they're geared towards language learners.
Right.
They're highlighting those everyday expressions
Yeah.
that you might not find in a textbook,
Yeah.
but are crucial for sounding like a
Yeah.
native speaker.
Yes. It's like a secret code to unlocking fluent conversation.
Exactly.
I
So
love it.
let's crack that code,
Okay.
starting with a simple but very versatile phrase.
Okay.
Check out. Now, you probably use this for movies or museums, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Let's check out that new exhibit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's just as common for restaurants.
I like it.
So
Yeah.
our podcast gave the example.
Yeah.
I checked out this new cafe next door.
I love that.
The food was great.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, trying the food. It's about experiencing the place, the atmosphere.
A whole vibe. Yeah.
Whole vibe. Yeah, you're going on a little mini adventure,
Exactly.
even if it's just the cafe next door.
Yeah.
So have you ever used checkout this way?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
What places are on your to checkout list?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, a lot of places have been on my list for a while, but haven't had time. But there's this new ramen place
Okay.
that I've got to check out. I've heard really good things.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of exploring, let's talk about bistros.
Okay.
Our source describes them as small, informal, typically French restaurants,
Okay.
often a bit pricier than a cafe.
Gotcha.
It's funny because when I think French restaurant,
Yeah.
I usually picture something very formal, white tablecloths,
Fancy.
the
Yeah.
whole 9 yards. But a bistro's more relaxed, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. More of a casual yet trendy vibe,
Okay.
which is what makes them so popular.
I see.
And I think in a way,
Yeah.
the rise of bistros reflects a larger cultural shift
Mm-hmm.
towards more approachable fine dining experiences.
Interesting.
People want great food without all the fuss.
Right.
Have you noticed that trend where you live?
Oh, yeah.
With restaurants becoming less formal?
Definitely even fancy places are trying to be more welcoming these days.
Totally.
It's like they're saying, come as you are, enjoy amazing food,
Exact.
and don't worry about the stuffy rules.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Accessibility and enjoyment.
it's all about it.
It is.
So now when you're enjoying those meals,
Yes.
how do you express your preferences?
Ooh, good question.
Especially if something isn't quite your cup of tea. Well, our podcast source offered a polite way to say you dislike something,
Okay.
not all that crazy about.
Okay.
So they gave examples like, I'm not all that crazy about Italian food,
Right?
or even, I'm not crazy about shopping.
Yeah.
It's a subtle way to voice your opinion without
Yeah.
being too negative.
Right. It's like saying it's not really my thing,
Yeah,
but in a way that doesn't offend anyone.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny how language allows us to navigate
Yeah.
those social situations, even around
Totally.
something as simple as food preferences.
That's a good dance, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And on the flip side,
Yeah.
when you love something,
Yes.
you want to express that enthusiasm.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So the podcast highlighted 2 phrases for making recommendations.
Okay, let's hear them.
I'd recommend giving it a try.
I like it.
And you've got to give them a try.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is how natural those contractions sound.
Yes.
You got
They're so important.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut
Right.
to sounding more fluent in English.
Absolutely. And I think understanding contractions is key for comprehending fast-paced
Yeah.
spoken English.
Right.
You know, if you're not familiar with them,
Mhm.
you might miss crucial information or nuances.
Yeah.
It's like trying to read a map
Okay.
with missing symbols.
I like that analogy.
You can still get the general idea,
Right.
but you might miss those important details.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of missing details,
Oh.
let's talk about a story from the podcast that
Oh.
adds a little, shall we say, spice to our deep dive.
Okay, tell me.
One of the hosts, Erica, shared her experience with food poisoning.
Oh, no.
And get this,
Okay.
it wasn't from some exotic street food or questionable meat.
Where was it from?
It was from fresh orange juice in Morocco.
Wow. That's surprising. Fresh orange juice is usually considered pretty safe.
I know.
So what happened?
Well, that's the thing. Sometimes food safety can be tricky,
Right.
even with seemingly harmless things.
For sure.
It's a good reminder to be cautious, especially when traveling.
Absolutely. This brings up an important question
Mm-hmm.
about how we balance adventure with caution
Yeah,
when trying new cuisines.
right.
Especially in unfamiliar places,
Yeah.
you want to experience those local flavors,
Yes.
but also be mindful of your health.
Right.
Have you ever found yourself
All the time.
weighing those factors?
Well, for sure. It's that inner battle between I must try everything
Yeah.
and is this going to make me sick?
Right. A constant dilemma
Yes.
for the adventurous foodie.
And Erica described feeling sick on a bus ride
Oh, no.
after drinking the orange juice, which
I can only imagine.
I can only imagine was incredibly uncomfortable.
Oh, man.
And it's funny how one bad experience can sometimes overshadow all the good ones.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Like a shadow lurking in the back of your mind. But
Yeah.
it also makes you appreciate
Yeah.
those times when everything goes smoothly and you get to savor the experience
Yeah.
without any worries.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a reminder that food experiences are
Yeah.
more than just the food itself.
Right.
It's about the context, the
Mhm.
environment, the emotions tied to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a story with multiple layers.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes
Mhm.
those layers lead us to unexpected places,
Yes.
like those hidden culinary gems
Okay.
we call hole-in-the-wall restaurants.
Oh, those are my favorite.
Right.
Yeah, and the podcast described them as small,
Yeah.
unassuming places
Mm-hmm.
that might not look like much from the outside,
Yeah.
but serve up amazing food.
Exactly.
It's like finding a treasure chest,
And the phrase hole in the wall itself
Yeah.
is so fascinating.
right?
It tells us something about our perception of these
Well,
places.
exactly.
It's not about appearances.
Yeah. It's about the authenticity,
Yeah.
the passion, the surprise
Mhm.
of discovering something truly special.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it often reflects a
Yeah.
deeper connection to the community, too.
Oh, for sure.
You know, these places are often family-run
Yeah.
with recipes passed down
Yeah.
through generations.
Right.
It's like stepping into someone's home
Yeah.
and experiencing their culinary heritage.
I love that.
Have you ever stumbled upon
So many
a
times.
hole in the wall
Yeah.
that surprised you
Yeah.
with its amazing food and atmosphere?
Oh, countless times. It's like a secret handshake.
I love that.
Among those who appreciate good food,
Yes,
without the pretense,
totally.
there's a certain charm to those places.
Yeah.
A sense of discovery that you don't get.
You don't get it with the fancy restaurants.
Yeah, with fancy restaurants.
No way.
And it often goes beyond just the food.
It does.
It's about the friendly service,
Yes.
the stories shared,
Mhm.
the sense of community.
Yeah, you become a part of something special.
You do.
It's like being let in on a secret.
Speaking of secrets,
Yes.
remember Erica's food poisoning story?
Oh, yes.
It made me think about how
Yeah.
those unexpected experiences can shape our perceptions
Mhm.
of food and travel.
It's a reminder that while being adventurous is great,
Yeah.
a little caution never hurts.
A little caution.
It's about finding that balance, isn't it?
Right.
Embracing the unknown
Yeah.
while being mindful of potential risks.
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is.
You want that thrill of trying something new,
Yes.
but you also want to stay safe.
And sometimes that means doing a little research beforehand,
Yeah.
reading reviews, talking to locals, trusting your gut feeling.
Yes.
It's like being a detective.
I love that analogy.
Gathering clues to ensure
Yes.
a delightful and safe culinary experience.
So how do we apply all these insights?
Yeah.
What does this mean for someone who wants to become
Mm-hmm.
more fluent in the language of food and restaurants?
It means going beyond just memorizing words and phrases.
Okay.
It's about understanding the cultural context, the social dynamics,
Yeah.
the nuances that make each dining experience unique.
It's like learning a new dance.
I like that.
You need to understand the steps, but you also need to feel
Yes.
the rhythm, the
You have to-
emotion,
The story behind the movement.
the story behind the move.
Yes.
Exactly.
And the next time you're looking for a new restaurant
Yeah.
or planning a trip, pay attention to the language people use to describe food.
Okay.
It's not just about understanding the menu.
Right.
It's about connecting with the culture
Yes.
on a deeper level.
I like that.
What details, for example, would pique your interest when someone's recommending a restaurant?
Oh, for me, it's all about those sensory descriptions.
Ooh, tell me.
Tell me about the aroma that hits you when you walk in,
Yes.
the textures that play on your palate,
I love it.
the sounds of laughter and conversation filling the space. Make me feel like I'm already there.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about painting a picture with words,
Yeah.
creating an experience that goes beyond just the physical act of eating.
And it's about being open to new experiences, isn't it?
It is.
Stepping outside our comfort zones.
Yes.
And trying something we might not have considered before.
I agree.
Whether it's a new ingredient, a different cuisine,
Yeah.
or even just a different way of dining.
Absolutely. It's about expanding our culinary horizons one bite and one conversation at a time.
I love that. And, it's not just about traveling
Right.
to exotic locations.
Yeah.
You can have those aha food moments.
Totally.
Right in your own city. Think about those little cafes.
Yeah.
You've always walked past but never tried.
Right.
Or that new restaurant everyone's been raving about.
Exactly.
What little hidden gems have you discovered lately?
That's a good question. Ooh. I think most recently there's this like Peruvian Japanese fusion place
Wow.
that just opened up,
Interesting.
and it is phenomenal.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much food can tell us about a place.
It really is.
Its history,
It's fascinating.
its culture, even its economy.
For sure.
The ingredients, the cooking methods,
Yep.
the way food is served. It's
Yeah.
all a reflection.
It's like food is this living, breathing chronicle
Yeah.
of the community.
Okay, before we wrap up,
Okay.
let's do a quick recap of those key phrases
Yes.
we uncovered from the English Language Learning Podcast.
Let's do it.
Check it out
Okay.
for exploring new places.
Yeah.
Bistro,
Yeah.
for that casual, often French style of restaurant,
Okay.
not all that crazy about,
Yeah.
as a polite way
Right.
to express dislike.
Yes.
Tasty as a common alternative
I like that one.
to delicious.
Yeah.
And those enthusiastic recommendations.
Okay.
I'd recommend giving it a try.
Love it.
And you've got to give them a try.
Got to.
And remember those contractions.
Yes.
You got to.
They're essential for sounding more natural
Right.
and fluent in English.
They're like those secret ingredients that add that extra flavor to your conversation.
I like that.
But now I want to leave you with a final thought.
Okay.
Something to chew on, if you will.
I love it.
What's the most unusual food or dining experience you've ever had, good or bad?
Okay.
Think about the flavors, the atmosphere,
Yeah.
the people you were with. Those memories are what make food experiences truly special.
They are.
So go out there and explore.
Yes.
Be adventurous.
Ah,
Try new things.
I agree.
And don't forget to savor every bite
Yeah.
and every conversation.
Happy dining, everyone.
Until next time, bon appetit.